Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Watson Michael from Ceylon Institute of English and Leadership. And once again, we're delighted to have Mr. Jeff Kavanaugh back with us. So Jeff is the chief learner and chair of Infosys Knowledge Institute, a think tank backed by Infosys. Jeff has advised dozens of companies ranging from VC to fuel startups to global leaders and was managing partner for a major consulting firm. Jeff is also the author of 3 books, Practical Sustainability, The Live Enterprise, and Consulting Essentials, that has been published in leading places like Harvard Business Review, and he's a regular speaker at conferences including the World Economic Forum and United Nations. So Jeff, welcome back, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back. Really enjoyed the first discussion we had, and looking forward to this one.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, let's go talk about the Live Enterprise today. So this book, it has been named as the best business book of 2021 by Soundview Magazine. So we find many operating models out there in the market. Why do you call this book the modern operating model?
Well, first, take one step back. I was the co-author, co-author of this book, of my friend and colleague, Rafee Tarafdar, the Chief Technology Officer for Infosys. And he was definitely the brains in the engine room, the chief architect of the entire company. So all these concepts we talked about, many of them he either brought to life, he envisioned, or somehow orchestrated and brought things together. So it's very much a team effort. He and I were co-authors. The foreword was provided by Nandan Nilekani, our chairman, and there were dozens and dozens. If you look at the acknowledgments of people across the company and across industry and academics, and even some clients who contributed. So while I'm here in front of you, it's very much a team effort. It takes a village, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. To your question on why is it the modern operating model? As we were going through change between, say, 2016 or so, Infosys, our company, had grown quite a bit from a few hundred people or 1,000 to over 100,000, and billions and billions of revenue. And as they say in the tech world, it began to flatten the S curve. It just started to flatten. We could innovate, but it was more incremental. We took a hard look and said, what are some of these concepts? You have agile and open source and different aspects of change. And of course, AI was starting to emerge, and data. And how can you, and also we began to realize, I think the world realized that change wasn't something that every once in a while happened, or the market wasn't calm, then every once in a while something happened. And you couldn't plan a 5-year program of change, either in your own life or as a company. You had to just say, the seas are stormy. They're always stormy. There's always uncertainty, unpredictability, and deal with it. Okay, that throws almost every operating model out the window because it assumes, in the math world, deterministic. It's an equation that's more algebraic. But when you start having more stochastic or more uncertainty built in, you must respond and adapt. You can't plan your way. You must plan, but you must adapt and learn very quickly and evolve. So that was the premise. And during those years, we adopted a lot of these principles, and we learned to scale to where we're 350,000 employees, $17 billion of revenue. And while no one's perfect, and we certainly aren't, we were able to thrive during a lot of change, pandemic, supply chain crisis, even war, and having to move people quickly with natural disasters. So we wanted to share that, share these lessons. It wasn't a book about our company so much as just these lessons. And that's why we say it's the modern operating model, because there were plenty of good classic Michael Porter kind of strategy and models in the past. And there were some nice, I'll call them garage or small project frameworks like agile or ways of thinking. But people hadn't done it at an enterprise scale, the big companies. And here's the thing, the digital stars seemed to do it, the Google and Amazons and Apples and Netflix of the world. What about the legacy companies? What about the companies that had proud traditions and hundreds of years or dozens of years of existence, and they had bricks and mortar? Are you just tossing them away? Because for every Blockbuster or Kodak, there were plenty of other companies very strong, but they were still struggling with this. So we thought, how do you compete with the digital stars? When you have all these assets, but also barriers or constraints. So that's why we call it the modern operating model, because it allows companies to continuously evolve and to adapt, even with their architecture, even with the way they design their systems, because quite often that's considered pretty static. It's like pouring concrete or establishing a structure. You change it very infrequently. We said, you know what, let's challenge that. How can you make small changes frequently, even to your architecture, even to your systems? And that's the basic premise.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, well articulated. Right. So, Jeff, how does it continue to gain momentum within the organization and the market?
Well, it's proven itself. Fortunately, we had done this a year or so prior to the pandemic hitting. So talk about a pilot, or talk about a real test case. We were able to move 98% of 270,000 employees within a week and a half from in office to remote. And remember, most of those are client-facing consulting types of people who must have extremely high levels of security. They must work on client systems. So things like privacy, security, cybersecurity, it's huge. And of course, how do you collaborate and code across that, across 30 or 40 countries? So we were proud of that. And once we figured that part out and it was working, we were telling clients, stay with us. We're good to go. Here's why. And they said, can you help us with that? And so we knew that the live enterprise model had some merit. The other thing is, if you grow, let's say you double your revenue and you double your employees, you double everything, you can't keep doing that. At some point, you need economies of scale. And so one approach is build these large systems in place, and then you can simply. But what happens if you don't build the right thing and the world changes? Remember, people want the Silicon Valley, garage kind of model, or this model where lots of small teams. But those don't have economies of scale. That's what companies were stuck with. So this model, one of the key concepts, is called the quantum organization, where you can do multiple things at once. You have these platforms that are large scale, and you have guidelines from an organization like our CTO. And yet you have many, many, many small teams. We call them micro enterprises. That could be a customer facing team. It could be a process to improve your HR. It could be procurement. It could be in whatever it is. You can plug in. It's almost like if you wanted to go do a blog, you could create it from scratch, or you could plug into something like WordPress. It's a platform. Imagine that kind of app or that kind of platform for anything. We anticipated cloud like that, types of plugging into AI, many of these platforms. And I think the combination, that's a key concept of how you can have many small entrepreneurial teams, and yet they get the benefit of scale whenever they're ready. So if their idea has merit, they can scale. In the meantime, it doesn't take a lot to launch. And you know what? Like the venture capital model, let's say not everyone's successful. That's okay. As soon as you realize you learned, there's no failures. You just learn, and then you redirect. You pivot. Have you ever seen a large flock of birds? How they wonderfully move together? It's called murmuration. Could you pick out which bird is the CEO or the alpha bird? No. They all seem. And what's interesting is when people did the research, they found that each bird takes its cue from the 6 or 7 around it.
Wow.
And taken together, it works. And that idea of something like a scrum team, agile at scale. So that's one example of research we did for the book and for our own model, was to see what's working in nature that's complex and yet rapidly adapting. And so that's how it's been resilient.
Wow, amazing. And especially the way you said that the number of staff that you all had made them to work remote. Wow. Brilliant. Brilliant.
And I will tell you that I'll be the first to complain if we have bad systems. And we used to have some. But one by one, what used to work on an internet or laptop, they made mobile ready. and they created these super apps, one after the other.
Wow.
And I think that also was a key component, that there wasn't one big change. Every 6 weeks, we changed about 2% of the company. Every 6 weeks, because
Amazing.
we had reviews with the chairman, and he said, "What's going on?" Every time, like a drumbeat. And once you got used to it, then it wasn't too much. It's almost like if you go to Amazon or your shopping experience, you notice the button changes. Yeah, a lot of small changes happen over time. No big deal.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. You wouldn't change 15 different employee apps. You'd change one, and you could do this. And now you didn't have to go behind the VPN. And now you could do this. And you didn't have to. You could authenticate with your phone and not the password. And like I said, one after the other, and we became used to that. And so there was no longer the one big change. It was just a series of small ones.
Absolutely. Well,
and that was a concept. Yeah, that was a concept that the Harvard Business Review really picked up on, and we were proud to be published in that making big changes with lots of small ones. So micro change management is what it was called.
Yeah. Wow. Great. So we have seen Jeff, like giant corporations such as BlackBerry and Kodak going bankrupt as they never adapted to change. So many organizations are uncomfortable with change. How important is it to adapt to change in an evolving world, especially, and how this book is going to help them, especially in today's highly technological world?
Well, it's not just technological. It's also rapidly changing and uncertain. And even if you get it right in one territory, you've got other countries, you've got currencies, and again, there are crises that can pop up, and an activity that works well in one country might not work in the other. You mentioned, how do companies succeed? Well, first of all, you've got to rapidly learn. I think it's this duality of both being bold and being aggressive, and also being humble in that you're always learning. You're always saying there's something to learn from the market. You want facts to be your guide. And again, one other concept is the digital brain, collecting and analyzing data, but you have to have data from somewhere. So this whole perceptive experience, having all kinds of sensing going on in the periphery. What are your customers saying? What are your prospects saying? What are these markets? What financial, supply chain, your people? Are your people thinking of leaving? You shouldn't find out when they quit. Can you find out when they're disgruntled? Can you find out the things that matter most to them? You could even give them all raises, but if they want something else, like the ability to work from home or something else. So the idea is getting intelligence from the edge, being able to analyze it, and then quickly act. And then you get more feedback. It's that continuous feedback. So there's this attitude of learning. Of course, people have to have the skills. That's a whole other area. Talent. And then you learn and you apply. And I think that latency, the more that can be reduced, I believe if you look at the BlackBerries of the world and the other companies, technology can get you. I mean, if you don't have a value proposition, then that's that. But at the same time, can you read that soon enough? Can you maybe have another micro enterprise that doesn't cannibalize the other one, and maybe have both of them going on at the same time? Like the Kodak story, they had the digital technology. They just put it on the shelf because it was competing with their chemical film. They had the patents. So most of these stories aren't just one-liners, and there probably were. It just takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, maybe we'll take less profits here to go in this new area. And of course, it's always easy. We have a phrase in the U.S. called Monday morning quarterbacking. You're what the team should have done over the weekend. When you're in the heat of battle, it's hard. But what you can do is get better and better at sensing, analyzing, and responding. Rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And that's the best you can do.
Yes, definitely. So looking at this book, Jeff, The Live Enterprise, could you elaborate on any chapter of your choice?
Well, from last time, I love chapter 1 because it lays out the model. In this case, there's a model of 4 operational outcomes: the quantum organization we talked about, this perceptive experience, N = 1 in the whole personalization area, responsive value chains, and these intuitive decisions that you embed AI. And then you have the foundations behind it. So I like chapter 1 because it lays that out. My favorite, though, would probably be chapter 9. It's micro is the new mega. It's the micro change management, because it sounds simple, and yet how do you take something big, deconstruct into small pieces, and don't just cut it up into pieces, make it logical. So you start with it and you build on it and you bring people along, because you can force compliance with a stick, you know, or with rules, and maybe you can even have adherence to a process. But do you really get advocacy? Do you get adoption? When you do that, then the people that have adopted teach others, and so I think change often has this, at least in the consulting or the corporate world, this not stain, but this little bit of the stereotype of, well, every once in a while you go through a big change, there's a communications team and lots of PowerPoints, people feel good, and then one day you make a big change. This applies behavioral psychology. What makes you do what you do? Why do you want to do something? When is it in your self-interest? Maybe you take pride in it. Maybe it's because you understand it. Like, for example, rather than have some help screen somewhere else, can you embed a little bit of learning as you're going along? Little bits of learning. So I think that to me is a favorite chapter, because it brings everything else to life.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Right. So, So, Jeff, there is a quote, right? It's mentioned there. So, there is another better way to drive durable, effective change in your organization. And it's been proven effectively by global IT and business consulting leaders at Infosys. The live enterprise operating model provides a clear path to transform large, complex businesses into agile digital ecosystems that evolve with a changing market that needs and any scale to any size. So this clearly supports sustainability. So what are the advantages you see in agile and digital ecosystems for businesses, especially in the long term?
Well, sustainability, if you want to move beyond just feeling good about your own efforts into doing something, making a real change, it has to be done at scale.
Yeah.
And we don't have all the answers yet. We're learning. So it must continually evolve. And we must take advantage of sensing, whether it's the environment like temperature, carbon. Maybe there are other ways of sensing, like, for example, can we get the same kind of human experience with less wastage, with less energy? Or maybe we get the same effect with different ingredients, different path. Because if we can, then maybe we don't have to have quite so carbon intensive of an approach. Same for companies, because the easy way to get to sustainability is turn everything off, but that's not very pleasant, right? Maybe not even safe. So I think that's one aspect, is making sure we're sensing, analyzing, and respond, and then what kind of platforms allow it to scale, and then most importantly, underline, let's learn. What if the people in Davos or the people in our backyard or your corporate boardroom are wrong about an assumption? Guess what? We incorporate that and we learn from it. And maybe we don't say they were completely wrong. It's they were 5% off, and maybe there's a healthy middle ground. And I say that because I think too often we deal in extremes, or at least, it's out there in the media. And the reality is things are complex. And there are a lot of good solutions that these bodies are coming up with. And just because they're not perfect, let's continue to work through them, and let's gain momentum, get that flywheel spinning. So I think that is just how sustainability relates to this. And we had a whole chapter called the triple helix, in the book about that, because that learning and evolving and that feedback, you must integrate sustainability into the bottom line. It can't be off to the side. I think that's the path.
Definitely. So how would you summarize a live enterprise in one sentence, and what can we expect from it?
How about 2 sentences?
All right, that's fine.
It's the operating model for the digital age. It embeds transformation or large change into a continuously evolving and learning organization. It's the way that established companies can compete versus the so-called digital stars and be resilient in a disruptive market. That's in a nutshell.
Wow, great. And Jeff, the final thing we wanted to ask you was like, any final message to all the viewers out there?
Well, don't fight uncertainty and change. Learn to adapt to it rapidly based on facts and through many small changes. If you do that, I believe it provides a peace of mind and some calm amidst whatever storms come your way.
Absolutely. Wise words. So, Jeff, thank you very much for taking time from a busy schedule and doing this phenomenal podcast with us.
Thanks for having me. And remember, keep learning and keep sharing.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care.
Take care.